Yeah. So I think for next time, I'll put out post on the Instagram, and we'll post in the Discord and stuff. I wasn't sure, because it's been scheduling nightmare lately, so I was like, oh, just in case and something ends up happening and we can't do it today, I didn't want to like tell everybody, hey, we're gonna be recording this day, and then I was like, oh, just in case and something ends up happening today, I didn't want to like tell everybody, hey, we're gonna be. Whoa. I was like, there you go. Yeah, I was like, huh? Oh, all right.
No way. No way.
The future is now. Our chat here. Mm-hmm. All right, and I guess we'll do. We gotta. Are you rolling on your recording, Nick?
Yeah, I'm rolling.
Okay, I am rolling as well. Everything looks good. I guess we'll just do a quick countdown. 3, 2, 1. Clap. Everybody, welcome. I know you've heard all that probably at this point, but welcome back to the Midgar Minute podcast. I'm Chris, joined as always by my lovely and faithful co-host Nick. Nick, how you doing on this fine evening?
I'm having a good time, man. I'm excited to get into these chapter breaks.
Sink our teeth into the girth, the re-girth, if you will.
Yeah, man. I'm excited.
Oh, yeah. And before we get into it, as always, I want to give a special shout out to our lovely folks over at the Mosey Gang. And gotta prepare myself, because this list is getting long, man. I mean, it's a good problem to have, but it's a lot of names on this list. Special shout outs to Scott, Kyle, AJ, Danny, Kevin, Jillian, Brianne, Matt, Sam, Charlotte, Cameron, Garrett, Dan M, Ryan, Petros, Matt M, Tyos48, Colton, Tone, Kimmy, Chris G, John, Flynn, Jim, Joey, Trey, Carmen. Special shouts out to Carmen, Gracie, Benjamin, Lucas, Justin, Alex, and Chris. Thank you guys so much for your generosity and your patience with us. And yes, of course, special shouts out to Carmen for the intro and outro music there as well. And if you, dear listener, would like to be included on that ever-growing list of people, you can give us $1 a month or just $1 one time, and you get access to our Discord, where we're trying to get some more stuff going on in there. So we do stuff, and we're going to be doing more live things in the future. I'm doing Rebirth streams. I want to do a bit more consistently in there. So if you want to come hang out, just come talk to some cool people, or ask us questions, whatever you want to do. We have links in the episode description and social medias as well. But if you're if you just hear and you want to listen and you don't want to give us anything, that's fine. We're just glad that you're here. Listen to us ramble about this great franchise here.
And perhaps its greatest installment.
Yeah,
that's another conversation for another day.
That's
still on that.
I even having sat on it for a little while and kind of let it marinate in my mind for a while, I still like Rebirth a lot. I mean, it's a hard game to process just because of the amount of stuff that's in there, but I think, I guess to get us started here, the way that this game starts in the prologue is honestly, I think, probably the best way they could have, aside from the way that Maximilian wanted it just starting in the truck in the flashback. But I think opening it up with Zach and Zach's timeline, which we don't know right away, that it is that until we're getting shown all the debris and stuff from the finale of the previous game, which I guess had implications in, I don't know, because it didn't seem like there was any of that happening in the Beagle verse, I guess I'm gonna call it, the the remake, the original timeline or whatever we want to call it. We still don't know exactly. I don't know the best way to really signify. I guess I think we call it by whatever breed of dog Stamp is that we see. So we have the Beagle verse, and then Zach's in the Terrier. I think that's a Boston Terrier verse. And then as we'll see later on, there's more, and that's why I'm like, maybe we call it by the dog breeds. I guess would be the easiest way. But yeah, it doesn't seem like this destruction happened anywhere like in the Beagle timeline, or at least we couldn't really tell because we didn't see. But I would have assumed that all the stuff that we saw at the end of Remake was from the Platefall, because we only really see like Sector 7 a little bit and a little bit of Sector 5 at the orphanage there. So we don't really get to see too much, and I think maybe intentionally so, that they left it kind of vague. But yeah, I was genuinely like surprised when I was like, oh, we're okay, we're right out the gates. We're starting with Zach, huh? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
came out swinging.
Oh yeah, and I feel like obviously is not like, hey, if you didn't play the last game, you're not gonna understand. So immediately, the whole, oh, you don't have to play Remake to understand Rebirth. I think that was a lie. I don't know. I don't remember if that was Nojima. I don't remember exactly who said that, but I think that's a lie. Especially with this game in particular. I don't know. I think for most things you probably could get away with, but I don't know. I think if you didn't play Remake, and if you haven't played Final Fantasy VII before, and you're starting at Rebirth, I think you're going to have a bit of a tough time getting up to speed with stuff. I mean, I don't know. It's a hard thing to really quantify, I guess, because we know, we've been fans since OG, so it's kind of hard to look at it from that perspective. And I mean, hey, if there's anyone who's listening to this who this Rebirth was your first foray into this, please let us know how that was, because I'm very curious how that experience was for you. So I know we had a friend of ours, J-Rob, back when Remake came out, and because that was his first FF7 experience, and that was an interesting perspective, and kind of being like all these things that, like you could tell like there are certain things that have gravitas to them, but if you don't know what it's about, obviously the weight is not there. So I'm super curious if anyone out there listening to this, if Rebirth was your first Final Fantasy VII thing, please let us know. Send us an email, leave us a comment somewhere. And if you want to get on the show or whatever, just want to talk about it. So I'm very curious about that. But anyways, I love this intro. I love it so much. I think it's perfect. Even despite the fact Kyrie is there, I think it is perfect. No notes. It's a great way to open it up. And then, especially considering Zach is not as big of a thing in this game as I thought he was going to be. I mean, he shows up periodically throughout the story and then, plays a part in the finale. And by the way, spoilers. I guess I don't know. Maybe I would have thought that maybe be implied, but yeah, we're going to be, even though we're talking about Chapter 1, we are going to be talking about the entirety of Rebirth and Remake and stuff. So, just fair warning. There probably should have put that at the head, but it's fine. So it's interesting that they do start off with Zack right away, and then not only that, you get to play as him, which also got me very excited, because I'm like, ooh, that means he's going to be around, and then it's like, oh, he's kind of not, but all the times that he is around in the story, I think are great. I think it might be some of the best stuff in the game, honestly.
Honestly, I think it was actually really good to be very minor and selective with him. Honestly,
Well,
I think if he was included in a big chunk of the game, it essentially would make FF7 unrecognizable from the original. But
right,
one thing
yeah.
we saw going through this game was that it was, especially as far as the surface plot, stayed pretty true to the original. Again, minus a lot of that under the curtains Zack stuff going on. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of the same stuff happened, and we went to a lot of the same locations in the proper order.
Yeah, and I think maybe because they, I don't know, maybe them trying to stick a little too much to the original. Like, it made me think about it because it wasn't as bad in the first game, or remake, I should say, because most, like 95% of that game was OG. And then at the and with little sprinklings of new stuff throughout, and then at the end is when it kind of went a little all over the place. So the expectations coming into this game, I think, were a bit different for me, at least, because it's like, okay, well, now that we know that shit's kind of crazy, where's it going to go? How far are they going to take it? And then you also got to remember there's a third game that, seems like, okay, we're just going to follow through with everything. The story's going to remain the same, and then we just have this stuff going on over here. And I wonder if it's, I don't know, maybe it's, and I think maybe with this game I kind of saw a little bit, maybe it's kind of, I don't want it to tear away from either of them, because I obviously love OG, and I'm really liking the new stuff that they're doing as well, and I'm curious how it's all gonna balance and fit together. I think, despite this game being massive, I think it does. I mean, the pacing kind of stinks in this game. If that's the one of the major complaints that I have with this game, that the pacing kind of sucks a little bit. But yeah, it's interesting to think how, like I didn't expect Zack to be like the secondary protagonist of the game. Like, I didn't think it was gonna be like a Last of Us situation where, we play half the game as Cloud and then we play half of it as Zack. I guess I would have expected just a little bit more. I would have expected, maybe you have, maybe not like full on open world segments, because every time that we're playing as Zack, it's mainly cutscenes, aside from the fights, and then in which case you're a little bit more involved. But it's all kind of, even in this intro, it's, you're basically essentially just walking down a hallway to to get to the helicopter where Aerith is at. Which I guess, yeah, I'm talking as if everyone just knows everything. I don't know if we should be breaking down, I guess, what goes on here. But yeah, so we start off with, the ending of the last game, essentially, like, not literally, like, right where we stopped from in Zack's perspective of him carrying Cloud back to Midgar, and we get to see that, we're seeing this aftermath of the singularity, or whatever you want to call it, from remake, and what it's being what the effects have been with it on here, and everyone's kind of freaking out. We see all the main party presumably dead. I'm just gonna say that they're dead, or in stasis or whatever. Well, we'll get into that later on, of course. But for argument's sake, we'll just say that they are dead for now. And then Zack sees Aerith on the TV, and that's what spurs him to go and try and rescue her. And then Red, being the badass that he is, downs the helicopter. And then that begins the gameplay sequence there with Zack. But yeah, I also, we have some people asking, or there were some questions in the Discord here that Trey asked. Do you think that they showed the Shinra Tower being down to emphasize the different universes? I think because when they're showing that, they're doing like the reverse. They're doing like a pan out shot of, like, in OG you have in the beginning, they're doing the pan in through Midgar, and then we're kind of doing like the reverse of that here. We do see the Terrier stamp on the on one of the billboards there before it pulls out to see that, we see the top of the Shinra Tower there. So they very clearly were like, oh yeah, no, this is the Terrier verse, or the obviously the timeline in which Zack is alive. Which I guess that in itself would be enough, but that we don't know that until we see Zack, I guess. So that we see that billboard before we go back down, because it pans out. We see the Shinra Tower in shambles, and then it goes down underneath, and then we see the white the white feather, which obviously, man, Genesis. So now I'm just like thinking of. I'm like, oh man, Genesis. Well, we'll get to Genesis or the lack thereof at some point, but I think the yes, and then we have Bree here saying, yeah, the damage in Midgar, the Beagle timeline isn't as bad as Zack's because the top of Shinra Tower is visible from Calm, and then the ocean in the late game. So yeah, so in the Beagle verse, or the Beagle timeline, there is, and I'm wondering if that's because of the singularity, and I guess maybe when we were in the singularity, we were closer to this timeline, or I'm maybe getting a little bit too ahead of myself when we're talking about timelines already. But I mean, it's kind of, I don't know, I think it's poignant to the beginning of this game because they kind of shove it right in our faces right right in the beginning. So yeah, I'm curious how that works, or maybe I'm just overthinking a detail that doesn't matter, which has happened many times in the past before. So I think that could also be a fair assessment as well. But yes, this whole beginning sequence, I think, was a great way to catch us off guard, because I was not expecting it. I mean, we had seen parts of this opening, I guess, in the trailers leading up to it, but I didn't necessarily think that was going to be the beginning of the game. So when I saw that we were doing the news broadcast, I was like, huh, okay, that's bold, I guess. It's bold of them to do that. But yeah, I mean, I don't have any sort of complaints. I think Zack handled very well for the little bit that we were able to play as him. I mean, I'm glad that he's not just Cloud, like I didn't think they would just literally, like, oh, just give him Cloud's moveset, and, but it's Zack, and he's just a Cloud reskin. But, for the little bits that we do play him, because, now looking back at it in retrospect, we don't really play as Zack for that long, especially in a combat scenario. So it's like, the fact that they did go out of their way to he has his own skills and own, everything, basically. When I played this the first time initially, I was like, oh, so he has his own, move set, and he has his own things, oh, so he's gonna be a bigger part of this game, at least that's the impression that I had gotten, and then was kind of a little disappointed when we weren't doing as much stuff with him, but I still think all the Zack stuff in this game is great. I finally came around to the new voice actor, by the way, over the course of this game. I think this game really sold me on the new voice actor, whose name I keep forgetting, but no disrespect, of course. But was there anything that you wanted to add about that prologue there, Nick? Or it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, at the end, it's pretty straightforward. As far as a prologue goes, I thought it was very interesting to basically introduce, let's call it, the doom and gloom world.
Mm-hmm, yeah, the sadness world.
Pretty much, because it really doesn't get any worse. Because it's also, it's worth noting that it reinforces the symbolism that when the materia falls out of Aerith's hair, that basically means death.
Right. And it kind of fell in the same way that it did in OG, right? It was trying very much to be representative of that, and just be like, yep, everybody's dead in this universe, so you're like, oh, that kind of changes things a little bit because you're like, oh well, we are they dead? Are they not? I mean, we know from trailers and stuff like obviously Aerith is like still like around in the Zack timeline. At least she's I mean, it would be weird if she like died, and then Zack's just like keeping her in a bed, keeping her corpse in a bed.
It's also important to remember that all these alternate worlds, they're not necessarily physical like the world the main narrative is
Right.
happening.
Yeah. So that's another thing too. Is like it's kind of hard to talk about these things without going into all the stuff that we find out towards the end of the game. But it's kind of for all intents and purposes, it's more or less like a purgatory type situation. This is not like a physical.
It's
not.
It's dream worlds. It exists within the ethereal, right? All those worlds exist within the life stream, and as we saw, like they're made up of people's hopes, desires, dreams, and memories, kind of all flowing together. That
right, and they're all just
yeah.
Kind of just a mishmash of the collective consciousness of everyone who is part of the live stream, I guess, whether they be living or dead or in between somewhere. Because I think a big thing, I mean, it's always kind of been in FF7, but I feel like they really lean on it in this game a lot, is the idea of like, what is being alive? What is being dead? What is eternity? What is, you know what I mean? Like they very much lean into those questions, and I think it's a very interesting question to ask. It's something to, like what I don't know what it means. Like, I don't know. I would perceive it as they're all existing and not existing at the same time, because the way that the live stream works, or at least my understanding of it, is that everything is kind of all at the same time. Like that there is no past or present or future. It's all existing kind of at the same time, and these kind of shatter worlds or shatter dimensions, whatever we want to call them, these offshoots that are happening because of all the fuckery of Sephiroth going on, I think are just literally just made out of the fragments of all these collective people's ideas. Because once we revisit this timeline a little bit later on with Biggs is there, and he's like, oh, he's talking about Cloud, and it's like, so this is our Biggs, and then we also see Marlene later, and then she's saying stuff. But also, I mean, Marlene, I think it might be a special case because something's going on with Marlene, which they did not touch at all in this game. Which, that's something that's definitely a third game thing I think we'll touch on. But, I mean, they referenced that moment there, and it's very heavily implied that she also, I guess, when she made contact with Aerith, either, I don't know if, I mean, I don't think that Marlene's like part Cetra or something. I mean, it could be, but I don't think so. I think just Aerith maybe imparted that knowledge on to Marlene and like kind of made it so that she can have, I don't know, a friend when she's jumping through dimensions or whatever whatever she's doing by the end of the game, or however any of this works. Because while they do sort of flesh out this new all these whatever little dimensions and stuff that are going on, they don't really explain it, which I don't necessarily expect them to at any point, and things are intentionally left a little bit vague or up for interpretation, which I think is nice. I don't need to have everything explained to me, but when they're introducing all these like radical ideas and stuff, and like I would say not fundamentally changing it. They're not really fundamentally changing anything. But I don't know. I feel like throughout the course of this game, and considering how much there is in this game, I would have expected a little bit more of delving into that stuff a bit more. But I think, as we were seeing some people here saying in the Discord, I think they're saving a lot of that stuff for the third game, and I think what I expected from Rebirth, I think, is what we're going to get in the third game. I think the third game is going to be when they really just go off the rails and I mean, obviously they will stick to the story for the most part, but I think it has the most potential to go off the rails in a good way. I'm not saying necessarily in a bad way, but because I kind of want them to lean into the crazy shit. I want to, I mean, I love the OG story and everything, and all the tellings of things in this game, though the updated versions of these, classic story beats are great. I think they are fantastic, and is further proof that if they literally did just do a beat for beat remake of OG, I think it would have been great. Honestly, obviously, we wouldn't have had anything really to talk about at the end of the day. But I don't know. I think I'm very curious to see to what extent. I mean, who knows? Maybe they don't explain anything. Yes, and I think Bree mentioned in the chat here that they're kind of leaving things vague with Marlene and kind of making the Cetra themselves a bit more gray and more like the stuff, which we'll get into that more when we get into like the later parts of the game when we have our little Cetra history lesson. Again, yeah, it's man. Even even though us doing like, oh, we're doing a chapter breakdown, this will be easier, right? We're not going to just fucking spiral off into every which way, right? But it's hard. It's hard to talk about this game without spiraling off into every which way because of how the game is structured and how it's how the story is rolling out to us. But I guess to reel us back in a little bit, let's talk about the flashback. Boy, did they nail this flashback, dude. And I know it's something I've said a bunch of times previously on the show of like how the Nibelheim incident is kind of like the genesis, no pun intended, to like the plot of this story. Basically, it's something that it's like the most retold event. I think it's literally in every single FF7 thing to one degree or another. Maybe it's like an offhand reference, or obviously they love to show the Sephiroth visual of him in the flames and stuff, which done very well here, by the way. But I like the build up here and getting to see like what I like to call Puppy Cloud, which I think they did a pretty good job of making it very obvious. And if you don't know, that Cloud is Cocoa Bananas, or Cuckoo Bananas, sorry. You could kind of tell, like, oh, this is not... Or you just, I guess maybe if you don't know the twists, maybe you'd be like, oh, I guess, this is back when Cloud was 16 or 17, however old he said he was. So he had the spark of life in him, and we've seen that happen before with Zack, like after Angeal dies and like he's not his puppy self as much. I mean, he still has it, but I feel like he gets a lot more serious after Angeal dies, and he tries to be like upbeat and stuff, but like he really. I think he's a lot more serious and he's kind of changes a little bit. So I guess maybe you could interpret it as that, right? Like, oh, this is back when Cloud was innocent and had the light in his eyes, and then something happens, and then he turns into a cold prick. But I think it's great. I think the dialogue is great of. Cloud narrating the story and, saying, oh, Sephiroth's on a completely different level than us. And, like, I just, the way that all that stuff, this whole entire buildup of everything in this, like, the flashback and everything is just really well done. Like, I think, like, I don't want to understate how, like, this game is, like, insanely well crafted. Like, it's very well considered, and it's one of those, like, you don't see games like this as much anymore. I feel like there is just so much love and care, and to like, you know, we said that about remake as well, but like this is, I think, on a entirely different scope and level and scale. I mean, in multiple ways, but you know what I mean? I don't know. Everything just feels so
Absolutely.
like everything, like every single second of this game feels like it was meticulously gone over, and there was just, you know, so much that went into every little bit, and you can feel it as well. Maybe some parts got maybe a little left to the wayside, but we'll get there. Um, but as far as the storytelling stuff, the writing, the acting, everything through this is even better, like far and above better than it was in remake. And I think remake did a fantastic job with all that stuff, and it's a thing that I was not worried about with this game at all. You know, like the music, which is also anytime it comes up, I will always bring up how fucking amazing the music is in this game, and how they again went above and beyond for that as well, which, you know, it's wild, you know, especially when you don't see that level of care put in the stuff, you know. And yeah, the whole, I love all the little details in Nibelheim, you know, going around talking to people, and kind of, you know, oh, everyone's like, oh, hey, Cloud, oh, you know, hey, like, good to see you, like, all little things like that. Mm-hmm. Even there's there's a part, I don't know if you'd seen it, but there's a part of the town where there's like a fence, and there's this guy who is just jumping over the fence. He's like jumping back and forth over the fence, and I remember when I was replaying it for the show, I remember standing there and kind of looking at it, I'm like, why am I thinking too hard into this? I'm like, why would they have this guy here? And I'm like, oh, because there's climbing mechanics, or like, jumping. There's like movement mechanics in this game that weren't present in remake. So like you can jump over fences now. You can do little things like that. And honestly, I don't know if it's me trying to give the game credit for something that I don't know if it was intentional. But I'm like, that's thoughtful game design in a way, right? Because you're looking at that, you're seeing this guy jump over it, and you're like, that's weird. But then you also see a chest on the other side of that fence, and you're like, oh, let me do what this guy is doing to go get to that chest, right? So like little things like that, where normally I wouldn't pick up on things like that, but because of how this game is been structured and how everything has been, it makes me want to pay attention to those details in a way that I hadn't necessarily, or wouldn't normally do with any other game. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And, you know, and then you also have, you know, things like, you know, Cloud eating that sandwich. The PS1 sandwich in one gulp.
How many
you know,
sandwiches did you eat?
You know, we can't all have Yakuza bread physics, so, you know, I get it. But, you know, I think, yeah, all the little things, you know, we got Mayor Xander, who, you know, the smallest of smallest bit characters, but I'm like, yeah, I could buy this guy existing and being the mayor of this town. You know, a little squat little guy with his little cowboy hat on. It's great. I love him. You could feel like, you know, you get like a sense, you can really feel like the personality of Nibelheim, you know? And that you know, that sinking sense of dread, because you're like, oh wow, everything's so nice and happy and fun here. I know what's coming, so it's like they're laying it on thick, you know? They're like, Bree asked if did the fence have yellow painted. I don't think so. I'd have to go back and check, but I don't think it did. And that's why I think they had the guy showing that he was jumping back and forth over it, because I'm like, oh, that's how, like, oh yes, you can mantle over things now. Because we invented the new technology that Cloud remembered how to mantle over things when he was younger, and then forgot, but then he remembered again after going through the flashback, I guess. He's like, oh yeah, I remember going back to Nibelheim and seeing a guy jump over a fence. Oh yeah, I forgot you could do that.
Coming back to me now.
Yeah, retroactively learning mechanics. But yeah, I think everything's great. I mean, Zangon is amazing. Also criminally underused in the story. I would have loved if he came back in a way, because I'm like, they set him up, and yeah, who knows, maybe he comes back in the third game and plays a bigger part and stuff. Because I still think that they're pulling the wool over our eyes a little bit and being like, oh yeah, everything's playing out as usual, right, as expected. But they kind of do the same thing again at the end of this game, where they're like, oh, everything's going the same, or is it?
Mm-hmm.
So, I think the same level of excitement that I had at the end of Remake, I still have. It's maybe a little less so for the third game, but like the end of Rebirth, I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm a bit more in check this time, because I think at the end of Remake, I was like, oh my god, they're gonna it's gonna go crazy. It's gonna be like, we're gonna go to the same places, but it's gonna be like a completely different story. And it very much was not that, but that's my own fault. That's not the game's fault or the dev's fault. that's my own fault for not keeping my expectations in check, I guess. But yeah, I loved all the stuff in Nibelheim. Cloud visiting his mom, which we saw a little bit of that in Remake, and I like that even in this flashback, it's still like he doesn't really want to talk about it. I'm not entirely sure. Do we think that Cloud actually visited his mom in Nibelheim when, obviously not as a soldier, but as, just a regular trooper? I am of the opinion that, because I'm pretty sure in Crisis Core we never really, like, he says that he's going to, but then it's like never really mentioned again after that. And then, I mean, of course, he's not really in the talking mood after Nibelheim, so I guess we can't really inquire into him. But I think that all the stuff with his mom is made up in his head. I think that's his own perception of how it would go, because obviously he didn't go back as his puppy self, his Zack Sona, if you will.
I actually have the opposite opinion. I think it definitely happened, because when you walk in, you see the way she kind of sizes him up and down. It's clear she's not talking about the soldier uniform, like, kind of observing that he's in the grunt gear.
Explicitly never says anything about him being a soldier. Yeah.
And if Cloud was just making shit up, it wouldn't have been too hard for him to keep revisiting the memories. Like, the problem was, like, the memories were piling in and it was too much for him. Like, if he was just making shit up, like, he wouldn't be feeling... I don't know. Who knows? Who knows?
That's
the live stream sequence.
That's the magic of Final Fantasy VII. Who knows, really?
Who knows?
I mean, I would like to believe that he saw his mom before she died horribly. I would love to believe that he did, but because I'm remembering more of Crisis Core, and because you're there in Nibelheim for a bit longer period of time, and you get a little bit, you're not directly talking to him, but you got the text messages and stuff and emails from people, and I remember him saying, like, oh, I was thinking about doing it, or, like, he had some reservations, but I would like to believe that he did, but yeah, just the way that it was handled as well in this, where it's kind of like Cloud is the definition of a why now I'm blanking on the term, unreliable narrator. There we go. So I'm like, I don't know. Is any of this real? Is any, like, or did he just stand in front of the village gates for 7 days and not talk to anybody? Like, because that's, I think, because he's remembering himself as Zack, that would lead me to believe that he embellishes other parts of it as well, and kind of to help sell the story to himself. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Of like, yeah, I went around, everyone was happy to see me, and, everything was great and cool, but I remember in Crisis Core him being very like, I don't want to be here, I don't want to talk to anybody, I don't want anyone to know that I am who I am, because I said I was going to be a soldier, and I'm just a regular goober, you know. So I don't know. But it's fun though. I think that's it's an interesting point of discussion. Oh, and we get introduced to the piano minigame, which, like, again, to go back to how much love and care was put into this game, they didn't need to make that minigame as good as it was. They didn't need to go that hard.
No, of course.
And be like, oh yeah, if you know how to play the piano, you could just play the piano. And, well, kind of awkwardly and shittily through 2 analog sticks, but, you could do it. It's it's a totally fully fleshed out piano minigame. And I love the fact that they're utilizing the fact that this is a flashback and that Cloud is retelling the story, because the little interjections that happen, like there's one at the very beginning when Sephiroth is asking Cloud, he's like, oh, this is your hometown. They're like, oh, you got anybody you want to talk to, whatever, and then then he's talking about, oh, I have my mother's name is Genova, and then it stops, and then Barrett's like, what, Genova? Like from the Shinra building? And Cloud's like, yeah, I'm getting to it. Like, I love those little things, or like when he goes into Tifa's house, and, what you do, depends on how he says it, of like, oh, you went to my house? Like, yeah, I did. And he's like, oh, you went into my stuff? And then if you do, then they Tifa and Aerith scold you. But then if you don't, you're like, I was just joking. And they're like, that's not funny, mister.
They scold you either way. You're fine.
Never joke about going into a lady's cabinet, ever. Only serious talk here. But I love that they are leaning into the fact, or taking advantage of the fact that it is a story, a flashback that's being retold again and narrated, and they're having fun with it. And I'm glad, it wasn't just like, oh yeah, we'll just play through Nibelheim, and we go to the water tower and all the other things. And there's one thing I did want to bring up before we get into a bit of later stuff here, but there's a point, I think when you first go into the hotel, like the first night, and you talk to Sephiroth, he says, he swears he could have seen Nibelheim before, or this, I forget exactly how he put it. It's like, oh, I've seen like this skyline before, this landscape before. And I'm thinking, okay, what does that mean? Does that mean that he's literally been here before on a mission and doesn't remember? Or is it like he is... Because I think that this version of Sephiroth that we see in the flashback and, is still... this is still normal Sephiroth, quote-unquote, before he becomes the Sephiroth that he is now. So I'm wondering if this is like he's seeing flashes of the future, right? And like what the implications of that could be. And I don't know. It was something that I saw. I'm trying to find it here because I want to get like the exact... Oh, and Bree is saying that she could have sworn Sephiroth spent his early days in the Shinra Manor labs before being sent to Midgar. But maybe could be mixing that up, decades of fanon. I mean, yeah, it's one of those things, like, I don't know what's canon, I don't know what's in my own head, I don't know what I've read online, like, I want to think that that's implying that, like, of things to come, of things that, like, oh, he knows, or he doesn't quite know yet, but his future / present self is, like, he's not entirely connected to this version of his past self, but there's something is happening, like, I don't know, maybe it's like maybe because there's an event that's going to happen, maybe the timelines are a bit weird, or because we don't know exactly how like the information works in this world. Like, does Sephiroth know the same amount of information, that on across all points of time, or if this version of himself that would have existed Okay, now, because if we're trying to think that Remake is a continuation of the story, right? Or a continuation of, like, the progress of events, this version of Cloud's version of Nibelheim, but would that technically be after the Nibelheim that happened in OG, I guess? Technically? I don't know. And that's the thing, is, like, I don't know how far does it go? How far does the time hopping shenanigans go? And that's something I don't feel like we ever got, like, a very clear answer for in this game. And again, that's fine, because there's a whole third game that considering the length of Rebirth, I'm very concerned about what the length of the third game is going to be, because well, I don't know. They also, like, they put a lot in here, I think, because they were laying the groundwork for the third game in this game. So, like, mechanically speaking, and the map and stuff. So, yeah, maybe it won't be as jam packed as this game is, but I think, I don't know. Maybe it's nothing, but it's something that I put down in my notes because I'm like, is it connected to what happens in the future? Is it connected to, like, this is Sephiroth, he's still, like, innocent baby Sephiroth here, so is he, is his future version of himself, like, trying to tap into, or is Jenova manipulating him? Still not very clear about that either, I think, by the end of this. Is like, we're not entirely, Jenova obviously is a big problem in this, they do clarify a bit more, and the little, like, tidbits that we gotten of Jenova being, she manipulates people, obviously, and takes the form of anything and anyone. So again, kind of, honestly, this game made me think that the Sephiroth that we see throughout the course of the game is never actually the Sephiroth that we saw at the Edge of Creation. I think that Sephiroth exists in that pocket, and that's it. I mean, I want it to be him, but I also am like, I still feel like they're towing that line a little bit of, like, is it him? Is it Jenova? Is it, what, like that episode that we did a couple months back of, like, what is the percentage of control here? Is it are they working together? Is it Sephiroth being puppeted throughout this entire thing? Does he have no agency? I mean, I would like to hope that he does. I say that, but the guy wants to commit, like, planetary genocide, so, maybe not, like, rooting for that necessarily, but I don't know. Sephiroth is such an interesting character to me, and his development and these little new things that they're doing with his character, I think, are very fascinating, and I just, in the course of Rebirth, I feel like we don't see a lot of that, unfortunately. But, yeah, and Bree's saying in the chat that, yeah, Jenova and Sephiroth are kind of, like, intermingled.
They're
I would
symbiotic.
say. Yeah, and it's like something of, like, even back in that episode where we were discussing that topic specifically, it's like, is it, like, was Sephiroth ever Sephiroth? Like, did he ever have his own anything, or was it always Jenova, and she was just, like, dormant or whatever? I don't know. And that's the thing, it's never really delved into in that way, and that, again, totally fine. Maybe it'll be covered in a novel at some point. Who knows. But yeah, I don't want to keep spiraling off, but like I said, it's it's hard to talk about this game and not to not go into all the craziness because there's just so much stuff here.
Yeah, I got a feeling no matter what chapter we're going to break down, the second we stop recording, you'll be like, "Oh, I forgot to bring up."
Yeah. That's going to happen a lot. So there'll be addendums. We'll probably be there'll be things that we think of in between episodes that we'll always find a way to bring it all back in and reincorporate it. But I guess to get us back on track here, the climb up Mount Nebel, which again is fucking amazing.
Awesome.
Cowboy Tifa's great. She kicks ass.
Cowgirl Tifa. Thank you very much.
Sorry, yeah, Cowgirl Tifa. Cow they Tifa. Yeah, I think that again, this whole they put a lot of effort into this beginning couple hours. This entire chapter really is really strong. And it kind of needed to be, I feel like, in a lot of ways. Obviously needed to have something a bit more because of the different tone and everything that we're in and the different sort of, like, in the, remake, obviously we can have it be, it's a big, fun, wacky adventures, we're blowing stuff up, we're going crazy. And, like, kind of just the difference of tone here, I guess they kind of have to make those changes. But I think they did it very well, and like I said, you can feel the care in the game. Although I will say it is sad that if you do go back to the chapter 1 in chapter select, it does not do the intro every time. I think it only does it on a fresh save, which I guess is fine. But like when you're climbing up and they're showing the credits, and then you get the title card.
When it hits.
Yeah. And again, the music there is great. I think, I guess, and we kind of talked about the changes to the combat and stuff, but I think we could talk about it again just quickly. I love how immediately you can tell of, like, oh, okay, they listened to people in regards to the last game. You're like, oh, you thought Cloud was a little too stiff? Not anymore. He's fucking flipping and dipping and zipping and zapping all over the place. And he feels great. He feels great to control. I mean, we get to control Sephiroth a little bit as well during the sequence. And he feels, overpowered and great. Love that. But yeah, they understood the assignment. They listened to feedback and they're like, okay, well, you don't want, let's give you a bunch of airborne enemies, and like, oh, now you can see, it doesn't feel like shit to fight airborne enemies now as Cloud. Or you just sit on the ground and just shoot fireballs at things. But yeah, I think that entire sequence climbing up is great. Although there's one negative thing I would say about that entire getting to the reactor sequence. The Mako vacuum. I'm
glad there's that style of gameplay lived and died in the prologue.
Yes. And I mean, granted, I think you do it way too many times. Like, once is enough. But you do it like at least twice, right? Maybe, was it 3 times? I think it's twice. But
I want to talk about it.
It's 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 one of those things where I'm like, we could have not had this here, and I think it wouldn't have affected anything. But I think they very much want to keep you engaged with the game, which sometimes works to its benefit and other times works to its detriment, I think. Like in that case in particular, like, when you're doing something, and other games do it too, where you gotta mash on a button to open a door, or you gotta hold the button down, or you gotta, and it's like, I understand you're trying to keep me engaged with the game, but it's also just like very tedious and annoying, and I don't like it. Like that, and there are other things throughout this game that have this same sort of energy to it, that we'll talk about when we get there. But like the chicken mini game. Sorry I should have warned people, give people a trigger warning before I mentioned the chicken mini, the chicken mini game. Um, just little things like that. Like we did necessary. It seems like you put it here just to waste time, almost. I don't know. Like, especially like the Mako vacuum in particular. I'm like, what is this? Like, what would we move some dumpsters in The Last of Us, and now we're like, oh yeah, let's put that in everything. Let's let's put that mechanic in. We want everyone to push dumpsters. I mean, hey, now I know what it's. I never really thought of how it would look of Cloud pushing around a giant Mako vacuum that's shaped like a dumpster before, and now I do. So,
yeah, look at that.
At the very least, I've experienced something new, I guess. trying to desperately to be as positive about that as I can. But I also it's okay, and you know what? And I can forgive things like the Mako vacuum or the chicken side quest. Because there is so much other great stuff. Like there's little things throughout the game that I don't like and little like things that kind of annoyed me or whatever. But then it's like, oh, you have the rest of the game. And then you're like, oh, okay, because then like after this, then you have the sequence when they're at the Mako Spring, right? And they're talking about the the origins of Mako and materia and stuff like that. And I love like little sequences like that. I love that. So it's like, okay, if I have to pay the tax of pushing around this cart so I can get a decent cutscene, I mean, I prefer not to have it that way. But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things that I can kind of just I can sidestep a lot of the stuff I don't like in this game because there's like for every negative thing that I could say about this game, there are 10 positive things I could say. So that's why like I am not negative about this game at all, really, except for like the little minor things, but I feel like it's all the things that everyone kind of is like, the pacing sucks. These little mini games are not necessary a lot of the times, and like I appreciate them trying to do a lot of variety because they do like there's a lot of variety. They do every area that you're in basically has its own little unique mini game associated with it, which I think is fun and fine most of the time, but it does get a little tedious after a while. And I guess maybe just I'm talking about it now because this is sort of the first iteration of that that we'll see later on. Some are more fine than others, I think, but this is the Mako vacuum was not a good start. It didn't get us off on the best of feet. But that's okay because the rest of the flashback is amazing, and you're fighting the Materia Guardian. You get your first introduction to synergy attacks. The Pantene Pro V ad. Sorry, the shampoo commercial that plays. The shampoo synergy attack. We should just call it that. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm trying to think. Was there anything else in between? Because I mean, that whole segment. I mean, it's mainly gameplay. There's not a lot of story stuff that happens in there, so it's kind of like, aside from the usual or stuff that was in the OG, I should say. So I'm trying to think. Was there anything before we get to the reactor that you wanted to talk about? Oh, Nick, did I lose you? Did we lose you?
Sorry, dog was barking, but we're good. Yeah, no, we're good. We're good. But no, I mean, as far as that goes, just that they're really leaning into showing a softer side to Sephiroth. Like a moment I particularly enjoyed, right after Tifa yells at her dad like a brat in an endearing way, mind you. Is when they force it. And that's that. But anyway, fucking when they take the picture, and it's like, oh, it means so much to our town. You hear them go like, okay, just kind of like, okay, I don't know, just showing the softer side to him, leaning into that. We speculated they were going to lean into the human side of Sephiroth. I don't know if they were going to lean in that hard.
Yeah, I agree, and I definitely appreciate it. And I want to see I want to see the humanization of Sephiroth. I want to see, and leading into the reactor sequence when we get to where the pods are at and where Genova is, and thus beginning the fall of the hero that is Sephiroth. Um, I think it's great, and I wanted more, and I think we'll get more. And honestly, what I actually think will probably realistically is going to happen is that we're going to get that in Ever Crisis, and then whatever happens in Ever Crisis, that's going to be our baby Sephiroth moments, and then whatever's going on in whatever the third game is going to be. But who knows? Maybe they tie it all back in. I honestly, I think that I don't want to believe that the Ever Crisis stuff is just like, oh, it's just here for context. Like, I want to think that the stuff that we're seeing in Ever Crisis is going to get. I mean, Glenn is back in the he's involved in the story, so I'm getting the feeling that the stuff that we're seeing in Ever Crisis is going to be reintroduced into the third game somehow, in some way, shape, or form. So I think that's a pretty good sign. But yeah, I do like that we get to see a little bit of like regular Sephiroth in this. And if you want to see more of that, play Crisis Core, because that's most of that game. He is nice guy Sephiroth. he's before he reads a book and goes down the rabbit hole.
Who taught the soldiers how to read?
Yeah, see, that's why that's why we all the soldiers should just be like Zack, just dumb babies who are strong and they could swing a sword around. Don't think, just don't think, feel, as they say. And maybe that's what they, I don't blame, I don't feel bad for Shinra. I know that's a hot take. But maybe they shouldn't have sent Sephiroth to Nibelheim. Although I don't think they actually sent him. I think that was his own. He wanted to go there on his own, right? Because he was already kind of sus about his origins, and with all the stuff going on with Angeal and Genesis, and that he kind of. And since he's Sephiroth, he can just requisition a couple of goobers and a truck. Be like, yeah, we're just gonna go over here, guys. Whatever, Shinra business. We're gonna check on a reactor. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, just whatever. I gotta sign my release form. But I think, yeah, the stuff that we got with Sephiroth before the turn was pretty great. And honestly, I love one of my favorite sequences in Crisis Core, in OG, was the reactor sequence, when he's, having an existential crisis, basically. And, him even going into more detail here of being like, I knew that, I wasn't normal. Like, I knew that I was kind of weird and not like other kids, but I didn't think I was a test tube baby. Like, and I laugh about it, but it's actually really sad, because that's, he's coming to terms with this in real time, and you're just like, oh no. But, we also know where everything's headed, so everything has that undertone of like, oh, geez. But, yeah, another thing, I guess, because I think we can skip a little bit ahead to the actual Nibelheim incident. And I enjoyed the sequence, but I feel like they could have taken out the parts where you're slowly meandering. Or at least in the first part of it is okay, but then when Sephiroth comes around and then you have to hit L2 to move your arm forward, and then R2 to move your right arm forward. That stuff I could do without. But like the kind of slow walking through Nibelheim as it's burning, like, I understand as like a tone setter. I get that. Because I normally don't like sections in games where you are forced to hobble, or you're injured and most times it's for like like a story reason, right? Or like to immerse you into the moment, or whatever. But I don't know. I think with little things like that, and again, trying to keep you engaged, but it's like it could have been a cutscene, and I think that the wait would have been the same, you know.
Yeah, I
But
feel
there
like that's
is,
the game equivalent of this meeting should have been an email.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
oh, this gameplay segment should have been a cutscene.
yeah, exactly.
You made me limp. You made
and
me limp.
and here's the thing, though, is that it's not those sequences are not all made equal, because there's a part later on in the game when are going to Aerith as she's doing her final prayer, and then you have to mash L2 and R2 and you're fighting back Cloud's urge to kill her, I guess. And like something like that, even though I know that if I didn't touch the buttons, nothing was gonna happen, like it wouldn't have been changed anything. But in that moment, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna feel like, because I don't want to kill Aerith, I don't want Cloud to kill Aerith, I don't want that to happen. But so I feel a bit more like in certain instances, I feel like it's a bit more effective than in other times. Like that at the end with Aerith is very effective, and it's something like, oh yes, I'll do the song and dance, and I will play, the little thing just to be immersed in that moment, because I'm like, what the fuck is going to happen? Maybe, who knows? Maybe if I don't do it, then he will kill her. I don't know. I don't want her blood on my hands. But yeah, and then when I'm crawling through Nibelheim and watching Sephiroth very slowly kill the rest of the town's guard or whatever, it's just a little goofy. It's a little silly, because it's like they're all just. Granted, if I was going up against Sephiroth with just a gun, like I'm not. You go up against Sephiroth with anything, I don't think you have a. Maybe if you go at him with like an orbital strike from outer space, maybe you have a chance. But any holding up any weapon against Sephiroth, I think I would be a bit hesitant, because I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna die. Like, yeah. This is the guy that we all like, hey, he's the best guy, he's the strongest, craziest, he's the best one, and he's always super great, and he's like, now he's just killing people. Oh, well, we don't stand a chance. He's the strongest guy. There's literally no one stronger than Sephiroth in existence right now. So, well, technically, Cloud's there, or yeah, Cloud gave him a run for his money, I think. I think, stabbing him in the chest and throwing him into the to the Mako pit. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. But, hey, not everyone's Cloud, We can't all be Cloud, But I think, yes, I also wanted to note that because they were leaning into the flashback aspect, we keep going back to them in calm, and they keep having little moments here and there, and the tension between Cloud and Tifa during this entire thing is so palpable, and it's so awkward, and I love it, but I hate it at the same time, because I'm just waiting for the moment of when that we have later on in this chapter, of when they're talking about it. Because hey, good on Tifa for not immediately blowing up the spot and letting Cloud cook for a while. But she probably also is wants to know, and you can tell she wants to know, because she's like, yeah, go on. She says that a bunch, because she wants to know what he thinks happened, and the little nuances like that I really appreciate. And obviously big shout outs to the cast, because man, they killed it in the first game, but man, did everyone kill it in this, and not just everybody, everybody killed it in this game. Even Johnny kind of killed it in this game.
I love Johnny.
And obviously, Yuri Lowenthal, great voice actor, is super experienced and has been doing it for a super long time. Yeah, but it's that again, that just that level of quality that you don't. you don't see it, and quite frankly, you don't really expect it from a lot of games these days because of the modern the state of modern gaming and how uh, fickle and unbalanced it can be, and how a lot of games just kind of get shit out and just like, oh yeah, whatever, people will buy it, and then we'll eventually patch it into something that's decent. But no, with this, you could tell like there's time, care, a lot of money put into it. So like you could feel it. You could feel the budget in this game, and it's like one of my best ways to describe when there's like a great performance in something is like they paid hypothetically, like they paid the actors like $1 million, right, to do the game or something, but they're giving a $5 million performance.
Oh yeah.
Like it's that same, like they're like, yeah, we'll take whatever, but it's like you can feel that level of care in there. And I know I've said that like a bajillion times so far, but you can. It is within every aspect of this game, more or less. You can feel it, and it's worth championing, and it's worth noticing and being noticed, because it's like, hey, every other game company out there, like, do this. Take time with the games. Maybe don't just shit them out because your investors want to see a return on investment. But anyways, that's a whole other. That's neither here nor there at this point in time. But yeah, I guess. One thing I did want to. Speaking of performances, of when they're talking about like, oh well, no one knows what happened to Sephiroth, and then like, oh, Aerith is like, I heard on the news that he disappeared or whatever, he died, and Barrett's like, oh, fucking Shinra's, only dumbasses follow what's on the news, and then Aerith's like, question, does that make me a dumbass? And then Barrett's like, Shinra, fuck Shinra for taking advantage of honest people, or whatever, like the little character moments like that. And once I saw that, I'm like, yeah, this game's gonna be great. There's gonna be a lot of those, and there are a lot of those character moments in here that is exactly what I envisioned in my mind in at the end of Remake, right? When I'm thinking about what I wanted from this game, I'm like, this is what I wanted. Pretty much everything in this opening chapter is like exactly what I wanted from this game. And now, does it hold up throughout the entirety of the game? Not always, but I think for most of it does. And I feel, even after all this time and having thought about it, had a lot of chance to kind of really let it sit with me. Yeah, I still enjoy it a lot. I still think it's great. I'm just trying to. I don't think there's anything before we get to the scene of this chapter, when Cloud and Tifa are discussing what the fuck just happened. I do like that. That scene with Tifa and Aerith, and Tifa's like, "Hey, so what's Cloud been doing?" And she's like, "How would I know that? how am I expected to know that?" And she, having that the tough talk of like, "Hey, pretty sure Cloud was not there, although he was, but she wouldn't know that because he remained." At least to Tifa, remained, he never took that helmet off ever around her.
Yep.
Which, I don't know, man. I feel like with all the shit that they were doing and all the things that were going on, I feel like I don't know, you would have figured it out at some point. But, not throw any shade on Tifa, my beloved, but, I don't know. It's one of those things I feel like you're not meant to think about. You're not meant to care about those sorts of things, but I do, because my brain works that way sometimes. But yeah, I guess. And then I guess, yeah, in that same, when Tifa and Aerith are talking to each other, and Aerith is talking about her memories were being erased by the Whispers. Now, I think that's a very interesting topic. because what the fuck? I mean, she kind of alluded to that. She kind of alluded to that in Remake a little bit, like, oh, like I'm, whenever I touch them, I lose a part of me, or something like that. She said something like that in Remake, I'm sure, but I don't know. I guess maybe I didn't really. I thought she was talking more metaphorically speaking, and not like, oh, they're literally taking memories out of my body. But I guess, yeah, I guess if the whispers are a manifestation of okay, because now it's, and then it's even going to get even more confusing now, because we have the whispers in Remake, which are now those whispers are being controlled by Sephiroth / Genova now. But then later on in the game, we have white whispers that are being controlled by Aerith, and that's like, are they controlled by the life stream? Or are they being controlled, like, before they got absorbed by Sephiroth? I guess they were agents of the life stream, right? Of trying to keep things in canonical order or whatever. Making sure the canon events happened as they were supposed to. So I guess that is what the will is. That the will of the life stream? I guess so, right? I guess that was kind of. I'm trying to remember the explanation that Red gave us at the end of Remake, but I'm struggling to remember.
I don't think it's much more than what you're saying. They're the arbiters of fate. They're designed to keep everything in place.
So that raises a question of, like, okay, yeah, why are they? Oh no, sorry. I was just gonna say, why are they taking? What memories are they taking from Aerith then, right? Because it's like that. Honestly, that gives a lot of credence to this being a continuation. Because if this is all the same characters, and that somewhere in all of their heads, they have all the information of what's happened in the previous games, right? Like that's how I'm interpreting it. And is that they all, and obviously Aerith, I just said it's Aerith. Aerith is going to be more likely to know things because of her connection to the live stream. So maybe that's why they're like going after her. Because we know obviously the whispers are connected to memories and things, because we kind of see an example of that at the end of Remake, right? When they're getting all the stuff zapped into their heads. And they're seeing like Advent Children and whatnot. So it is an interesting little detail, because it's like, all right, well, obviously we know that Aerith knows more than she should, for sure, at certain points, and she's definitely not letting on what she knows, but we know that there's something. She obviously knows something. I mean, at this point in the story, I don't know, because she makes it seem like she did know, and then when she got touched by the whispers in Shinra Tower, they took whatever else was there, so now she's kind of back where she was, but she knows that they took something. There was something that was taken. That's all she knows, I feel like, at this point. Which is interesting in itself. And then we hear Aerith discussing it later with Red, which, we'll get to when we get there. But what I really want to get to is the talk between Tifa and Cloud. And it hurts. It hurts me. This conversation hurt me a lot. Just more like the ending of it. And like, just she's trying really hard. She's trying her best to like not, because she obviously, from her perspective, it's like, okay, this guy that I knew from my childhood in my hometown disappeared for 5 years, and little did she know that he was there for Nibelheim, but from her perspective, he just disappeared and then showed up, passed out, by the train station one day in Midgar, and that's kind of, that's all she knows of this guy. And obviously, she, may be thinking to herself, oh, maybe I don't know the full story, and like, I don't know everything that happened, but like, he wasn't there. So it's like, okay, well, now trying to suss out how, like, I honestly, the way that they handle Cloud in this game, I enjoy a lot, and kind of like everyone kind of knows that he's crazy, or like, I mean, I think people find out at different points, or they become a bit more convinced at different points during the story of like, oh, like Cloud's, he's not just like, this isn't a, he's not doing a bit. Like, something is actually wrong with this guy. And it's like, they're not like trying to antagonize him. I mean, because they still care about him. He's still their friend. So
Right.
I just think it's very sweet of them, and it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch Tifa like tiptoe around all this stuff, and then she's she tries to be a bit more direct here, and she's got to show you my scar, which I think it's interesting that we never actually see the scar on Tifa. We, as the audience, never actually see it. Not that, and I don't know if that's something I'm reading too much into, because maybe my interpretation would be like they're still playing into like, oh, what did happen, is what, what's going on. But I don't think, even when you're in Costa del Sol, I don't think I checked, but I'm pretty sure you never see a scar on Tifa. But maybe I don't know. Again, I think I might be reading too much into that. But now I kind of want to go back. I kind of want to go look and see if she does have a scar. But, oh, and another thing I wanted to say is that I am glad that all of the dialogue, or pretty much most of the dialogue that we heard in the trailers, gets uttered within this chapter. I think for the most part, and there's some stuff that later on, there's more later on stuff, but I feel like, like her talking about her being an imposter, things like that. And I was glad, because I'm like, I was afraid that the trailers had given away too much. I still think that they did, especially that final trailer, but, I had called it quits before that final trailer came out. But the last one that they had done prior to that, when they did the state of play and all that stuff, that was, I think that was a little too much. But, anyways. Yeah, this whole sequence between Tifa and Cloud is really great. I mean, it's sad as fuck, but I think it's great. And that you could tell Tifa's a little frustrated, but she doesn't want to push too much. But I think, the part that kills me the most is when when she runs away after they have that moment, and then you go back down towards your room, and then she's like, yeah, well, I thought that, we could just like pick up how we left off, but I guess I was wrong, or something like that. I'm like, oh, Tifa. Oh, I don't want to see Tifa like this. I hated it. But I loved it, but I hated it, but I loved it. So
I don't know. I live for it. I live for it. Bring on the pain.
Yeah, I hate seeing these characters in pain, because I love them all, but
I'm down for as much pain along the way as
it's
possible.
also, it's because of the pain that I feel like that's why I relate to the characters, or want to relate to them a lot more. So it's a double-edged sword, right? It's like I hate seeing these characters in pain, but I get more connected to them when they are. So I don't know. It's it's a good microcosm of life right there. And, I mean, I don't necessarily want to, bring up, the thing. I don't want to incite any violence or discourse in the community. But, I think that Cloud and Tifa might be the pairing, and then if you bring
what you're saying is the shipping wars are over.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they are. I know I believe if you go back,
here, folks, it's over.
It's over. Yes, that we're calling an end to it now.
It's been proclaimed.
It's been decided.
We decided it.
Clotilde is law now. But I think if you go back when we were talking about remake, I don't remember exactly what episode, but I'm pretty sure I did initially say that I thought that Cloud and Aerith should have been like the pairing. But then it makes more. I mean, it's more complicated now that Zack's alive again. But even without him being alive, I'm like, I never really felt comfortable with that, really. But I feel like I just said that because that's very clearly where they wanted it to go, right? That's what they want you to feel and be like, oh yes, Cloud, because he is emulating Zack down to. And I mean, I'm not saying that Cloud and Aerith don't have chemistry because they do, but I don't want to talk about this. I'm saying it's like, you know what? Maybe we just stop here now. Maybe we just stop. We just stop and
Probably for the best.
For everyone's sakes. But everyone, you can have whatever opinions you would like. Just like I have my opinions, you can have yours as well. So, but yeah, if you are one of the people that does ship Cloud and Tifa, there's also that undertone of that as well throughout all this, which makes it hurt 10 times more. And I think they do a better job. And yes, we know through Trade saying here that he knows things that he shouldn't and doesn't know things he should. He's clearly had a mental break, but she's so happy to have someone from her past back. Yeah. It's like she's willing to, I think throughout all of Remake, she was basically overlooking all these things and being like, I'm not going to ask too many questions because I'm just happy to see my friend again, And like, I want someone connected because, what these guys went through in their childhoods was pretty fucked up, I think that's probably the lightest way you could put it, but, So I totally get it, and that, I respect Tifa immensely for being able to hold that pretty much. And you could tell even in remakes, she wanted to ask. Of course she wanted to ask. But Cloud obviously was not wanting to talk about it, and she didn't really push. And I'm like, okay. She respected that boundary. And it's like, all right, well, I'm not going to push too much into it. And I also kind of just want to believe that, everything's cool. You're not mentally ill, and I'm not mentally ill, and we're all happy and great. But then, more bad stuff happens, and then it's just like... and then they have that affinity scene in Remake, and you're just like, fuck, man. These characters have been through too much, and then they have to go through so much more that we haven't even seen yet. Yeah. But yeah, I guess that's is that the end of the chapter? Does the chapter end after that conversation? I think so. Just double checking. Yeah, I think so. Which, that feels. This is we did glance over a lot of things. Because there's a lot. Even in even this only being a single chapter, there's a lot of stuff here, and obviously, I hope that they announce Rebirth for PC and stuff soon, so people can play the fucking game. And you don't have to buy a PS5 just to play this damn game. Which I wouldn't. I mean, who am I to say one way or the other? I don't think, as much as I love Rebirth, I wouldn't. No. My circumstances and our circumstances are a bit different, but I was gonna say I don't know if I would buy a PS5 just for Rebirth, but there's not really many other games that I would also be like, oh, but Spider-Man, which not totally fine game, but there's just but that's also on. They're putting that shit on PC now too, so
yeah.
I guess we just got to be patient. All these folks that have been patient so far. I think it'll come out a lot quicker than Remake's PC port did, but actually, I don't know. Are we? So it came out a year and a half after?
Yeah, a year and a few months.
Yeah. Okay. So we're we'll see. But Rebirth and NCAA Football 25. Yeah, there you go. What more? You don't need more games than that. that would be enough to push me over the edge. But yeah, I guess I'm trying to think. I don't think there was anything else that I wanted to bring up. Was there anything that we didn't touch upon that you wanted to bring up?
No, I mean, look, chapter 1 is pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of subtext, It's
Hmm.
it's again pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's
So
pretty
I think we
straightforward. I
covered
mean, it's
that.
setting up the foundations for the story of this game and the greater overarching story. I mean, we literally get like a little bit of like, oh, hey, here's a little bit of the new stuff, and then here's a little bit of the stuff that we know, with a little bit of freshness sprinkled throughout. And hopefully we see Zangan again. We need more Zangan in our lives.
I agree.
Rashard Zangan. Yeah, I really honestly, aside from the Mako vacuum and that crawling sequence in Nibelheim, I don't really have any other notes. I think this chapter is phenomenal, and is a really strong start to what is a mostly strong game. I mean, there's some lulls in there, which we'll come across when we when we get to it. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't have imagined a better way for this game to start. Honestly,
Yeah, me neither,
it's
honestly.
way more than I was expecting, and with all the Zack stuff, and all then the flashback was handled amazingly well. Yeah, I no notes really, aside from the Mako vacuum. I'll never shut up about the Mako vacuum. How dumb it is, but you know, other than that, I think it's great. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's it. I guess we'll do a little bit of housekeeping here. So this episode is actually being recorded live right now on our YouTube channel.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
you're probably asking yourself, well, hey, Chris, I didn't know about that. And that's because we've been trying to get set up here for a while, and we did try doing it live last time, and it was like kind of a mess. So I was like, until we kind of get things rolling, we're just gonna do this one cold, and then we have people in the Discord have been commenting and stuff here too, as well. So in the future, going forward, everything's gonna be streamed. Every episode's gonna be streamed live here on YouTube. And if you're listening to this on Spotify or wherever, you can go find us on YouTube to the Midgar Minute. And yeah, I guess that's really that's really kind of it. We have special shout outs to Trey, our producer.
Working it behind the
Yeah, our
scenes.
producer man who will he's not able to speak this time around, but in the future we will get him. We'll get
Chime in.
his chime ins there. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about the rest of this game and to get into it and to get more interaction from all you wonderful folks out there. And yeah, I think that might
Have
be it
these
for me.
breakdowns underway.
Yeah. And then we're gonna try and stick to like a bi-weekly schedule. Life has been crazy for the both of us, so it's kind of been a nightmare lately trying to schedule stuff. But we do want to be on a bit more of a consistent schedule, and now we have an extra set of hands here helping us out. We definitely will be getting stuff out a lot quicker than we were before. So yeah, look forward to that. And if you want to come join the Discord, we got if you want to support and join the Discord, we got the links. Actually, we'll probably got the link in the maybe in this description of this YouTube video, perhaps. Uh, but you know where to look. And if you don't, you can always ask us. Always glad to help. But yeah, I guess that's it for us.
Yeah, we'll
Right?
wrap it up here.
We'll wrap it up here, and yeah, I guess until next time, and thank you everybody for listening and being patient with us, and yeah, can't wait to dive even further into this wonderful mess of a game.
Likewise.
Yeah, and I guess I don't know. Now that we're doing this live, do we got to do the fanfare still though, right?
Of course, dude, of course. I would never give that up.
It's like that's a non-negotiable.
Yes,
the fanfare is a non-negotiable for sure. You want to count us down this time, Nick?
I would love to.
All right.
You ready? 3, 2, 1.
Oh, yeah, baby. That felt great.
That was nice.
All right. Well, till next time, everybody. I don't know if we're still recording or not on YouTube.
That's great. We don't control that now. We could.
Yeah.
Wait. What? Imagine the theme is rolling right now. We're just talking over the theme.
Yeah. We're just. Yeah. We gotta mute ourselves.
Hey, don't get sensitive for the next 30 seconds. Keep it G. I don't know how to keep it G.